Ladies and gentlemen, we're back with Real Estate Uncovered episode number 8, and today we're going to talk a little bit about structural engineers. We're also going to talk about why realtors are not big fans of home inspectors that use the term structural engineer in their recommendations when necessary. We're also going to talk about why some home inspectors will neglect or refrain from using the term structural engineer in their recommendations. And lastly, we're going to talk about how in past situations when I have made a recommendation for a client to seek the advice of a structural engineer, I have caught realtors lying and manipulating those clients to try and get the house sold. Okay guys, first up we're going to teach you a little something about structural engineering documents, and this is going to benefit you guys as consumers for the rest of your lives because you will be able to tell whether or not you've been provided with legitimate structural engineering documents. So I'm going to pop this image up here now, and as you can see there's two stamps. There's a circle stamp and a rectangle stamp. The first circle stamp is the professional engineer stamp, and they can all possess that once they graduate university for the rest of their lives. However, it's the second stamp, the rectangle permission to consult stamp, that's the most important. It has to accompany the circle stamp, and that permission to consult stamp means that the engineer belongs to an association and has adequate insurance to provide consulting services to consumers. So if you guys are out there in the real estate world from now on and somebody like a third party, like a realtor, whoever it may be, provides you with some sort of document and you don't see these two stamps on it, then it is not a legitimate structural engineering document. All right, now that I've taught you guys a little bit about structural engineering documents and those two stamps, I'm going to actually run you guys through a scenario that actually happened a few years back. Later on in my career, I actually started to stay involved with deals after the inspection was over because I started to see a lot of clients get manipulated, especially elderly women, first-time home buyers that didn't have, say, their dad or an uncle around to kind of watch things and whatnot. So I'd stay involved in deals to make sure that things would get done properly after the fact. And I uncovered a lot of realtors manipulating and lying to clients. And so we're going to pop this image up here. I did this inspection for an elderly woman and the basement foundation was a mess. As you can see there in the image, it's a little bit of a road map. Those are all cracks. There was also deflection, that side-to-side movement. So it was deflecting inwards into the basement. And then on top of everything, it looks like somebody had tried to repair this. You can see those are 4x4 posts there in the image. Somebody had tried to repair that. Generally speaking, engineers are going to recommend C-channel steel to brace the foundation. So anyways, I recommended a structural engineer for this situation. Put the report together and left the client be with the realtor, and the realtor came back and provided this document. As you can see there, it's literally just something drawn on a piece of blank paper. We have no idea where it comes from. Who knows? It may have well been come from a structural engineer. It could have been drawn up by the realtor for all we know. What matters is that there's no stamp on it. And so she was actually going to accept this, but because I stayed involved in the situation after the inspection, I consulted with her and said, there's absolutely no way you can accept this document. There's no stamps on it. So she was grateful for that. She ended up walking away from the house. I think what you guys can take away from this is realtors are going to cut corners and take chances to try and get houses sold, and they're not always going to follow the letter of the law in regards to this kind of stuff. All right, so why do realtors hate hearing the term structural engineer from a home inspector? Well, it's for two reasons. Number one, typically when a home inspector recommends a structural engineer, that means there's a major defect. And number two, it's because they can't lean on a structural engineer to get the structural engineer to do things the way they want it done, where they can lean on home inspectors. A lot of home inspectors, not all home inspectors. Obviously, I'm one of them that they can't lean on, but they can't lean on the structural engineer. And so the structural engineer is just going to come in and tell it how it is and put a plan together, which is likely going to indicate a lot of money for repairs. And that is one of the reasons why they hate hearing the term structural engineer. On top of this, that causes some home inspectors, in my experience, to actually neglect to use the term structural engineer. If we go back to episode 3, I'm sure you guys remember that interview I had with that elderly gentleman named Mike, where he bought a house based on the home inspector's observations in regards to that fire damage in the attic space. The home inspector said it was good to go. There was lots of meat left on it. He didn't realize that home inspectors did not possess the accreditation to sign off on fire damage, and that home inspector should have made a recommendation for a structural engineer. And the reason he didn't was to help the realtor sell the house. And so there's a lot going on there, obviously, but that is generally speaking why realtors don't like hearing the term structural engineer. And so they obviously don't like home inspectors, or they have a distaste for home inspectors that are going to make the recommendation for a structural engineer. All right, guys, just to sum things up here for episode number 8, What I think you guys can take away from this is that realtors are commission-based sales professionals, and they are going to cut corners in a lot of situations to get houses sold so that they can make their commission and move on to the next deal. I also think it's really important for you guys to take away from this the stamps that I showed you guys. It's really important that for a lot of defects, a structural engineer is required, and making sure that those stamps are on those documents is super, super important. So I hope you guys enjoyed episode number 8. I'm planning on actually doing an update for episode number 7 before we get to episode number 9. I'm not sure when that's going to be out. I'm hoping maybe later on in the weekend, but I hope you guys enjoyed this. As always, knowledge is power. We'll see you next time.